Good morning, folks. Every day we've been practicing, just trying to speak free off the cuff and not sound so bad I have to put it in that little trash icon on the computer. This is the third day and hopes this one will make it into the waves, folks, but So, the projector of the imagination. The projector is behind the false wall in your self-built cage. The projector will lead you to the hallway, into the self-built maze. It's revealing the cage as a maze, a labyrinth filled with all those selfish artifacts. Actions become artifacts, as we see when we dig in the ground. And these artifacts take the devil's shape, because the devil is just the collection of all of our selfish acts. Materialism is what I want to talk about first. So when I'm noticing people's inability to push farther in an understanding of a concept that is, foreign to how we were brought up. I always say, you're still thinking in a materialist view. And I've come to realize that when I say this word materialist, the people aren't understanding it for the same definition that I'm using. It drives people. I think there's like 3 layers to this word. I have kind of definitions for at least 2 of them, but materialism does not just reference a coveting of physical things. It is not just about this act of selfishness. It is also ingrained into the fundamental way that your body and mind create your understanding of yourself and your surroundings. And it is in placing your first memory of yourself in the physical world as your center and first memory. I beg you all to connect to yourself in the most fundamental way possible from before your memory, always as your starting point. No matter how absurd that seems, you start shifting that feeling in your body with your thought on, okay, now, before all this, there's me. And your body will eventually shift over to that point, and you will begin to get past what I'm calling like roadblocks. They're kind of like little things on, nope, that thought has gotten away from me. As I've said, we're learning. We have a lot to learn before we can actually help people. But if I don't give it a shot, I will definitely suffer deeply inside, as I have for remaining silent. Oops, that's not good. Let's make this possible. I don't like this color. It's probably not gonna make it. Alright, so Materialism, yeah. And so I can tell the people are going through a self-reflection and saying, no, I do not associate with materialism. And it doesn't have to do with any conscious material associations. It has to do with these fundamentals that actually allow your brain to go further if you program that which is behind your brain to give the energy and let the energy flow in that electric direction, right? These roadblocks are put up, especially, so this is my whole point behind not searching for facts. Like, I still want everyone to research. Never turn down a chance to read anything searching. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's behind all of this. It's in getting your body to the subtler parts of your brain that happen before your conscious thinking. That is where we're trying to interrupt. And because when your body is so trained, your energy goes down this one direction and it doesn't hit these other parts of the brain that allow this opening up of an awareness, right? It's that allows you to keep going into the absurd because you don't have facts for any of this. But your body is the fact. Your body was designed. It has holographic copies of the whole within it. So it is not absurd. It is the language and the reasoning that has been handed to you. And that since it was handed to your parents before you, you have absolutely no reason to doubt it. It is just like, yet so much seemingly less horrible, but eventually it's just as horrible as someone stealing a brand new baby and bringing it up to be their slave by training it to only know this as a great existence. These people have no other reference point. So, before you were in the material, there is still something in you that is just like, there's only, it's a small little part of you that is just like you were before you were in your body. So, to shift that to be your center point so that everything in this world is not acceptable until you deem it acceptable. That is the place where Eva and Invohumana come from. It allows you to see the goodwill of the bumbling fool. That it's none of these people's fault, yet it is your fault as soon as you continue after having the knowledge. And our habits are the hardest things to break. And I truly feel, having gone down the roads of, Eastern thought, and I tried to go through these sort of New Age circles when I just went out into the world, and I found these fundamental things that were still driving their energy, still making them make selfish and biased decisions, and no true real look at what could be. It's just running the programs and still ripping people off once you don't see eye to eye exactly, with no thought of what greater force we are against. And those little things that separate us, so not important right now. You can talk about them as long as you want once we get back to some sort of civilized structure on this planet where we are understanding that exterior from us is just like the interior from us, and that not only the physical things we directly do, but every output of electrical energy that comes from our body effectively changes our atmosphere, our people, our soil, our relationship to sunlight. It's not as individual as everybody wants it to be. But we were brought here into this individuation process for a reason. We are not going to throw away all of our understanding of individuation, but we are going to remember what it's like to work as a single unit, regardless of these outputs of emotion that come from us when we are triggered by certain words created only to hurt us. It is not the concept that you associate with that is actually involved in this. It has to do with the effect of that word upon your subtler mind body. I just call it the body, because it is a mind, and you've got 3 or 4 minds. It depends on who more enlightened than me you talk to. So what is the point of thinking of your body as a material? You should think of your body as the effect of your minds. And so you're already associating. This association is really your pen which everything else revolves. So when they've moved this association on such a fundamental level, and there's really no knowledge that you're not moving it because you thought you removed your materialism when you threw out your designer shoes, and it's just not so. It's where you view out from yourself. It is that window. And aligning yourself within the material world will always, once you are pressured, result in a decision that only behooves this beast. So there's also the materialism, or the belief in material on that level, rather than just the coveting of material. It is this fundamental belief that is all that matters, and it's the only force at play. Yeah, I've heard many people mention, how does your cell phone work, if that's true? And definite further investigation into what's going on when the person still denies this, or does not go down a new route in their brain and change their mind, or at least begin investigating. That's really the point within these people, that we need to understand what their next excuse is after thinking about radio waves and microwaves and looking at the spectrum and how we see 9-10% of the actual electromagnetic spectrum, and it's all of these things. And then once you realize that there's more dimensions to your experience than just 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions, why anyone would still apply a 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional shape to the world without also showing what it looks like in the other dimensions. I metaphorically, obviously. And since the 3-dimensional image is transferred to a 2-dimensional space when you look at it on your computer, and it's in reality a 2-dimensional image being transferred to a 3-dimensional space when they create the globe, that this idea of multiple dimensions, again, should bring you to the magnetic spectrum. And then an understanding that one understanding is not enough. And saying that something has to be one way and not the other is actually just limiting yourself from the one most important function of the universe that brings you closest to the Creator, which is change. Being at the constant with change is being part of the natural law. It's moving with the waves of the greater. This is why we call it all an ocean. I know it's not all an ocean, but when I tell my mind that it can use water to maneuver through the entire whatever this is, I call it the still verse. I can maneuver through still verse to static verse, through ripples of water that I can understand as being separable. You must have seen those deep divers that come to a beach completely underwater, and it looks like there's a sky of water and that there is an ocean with its own tide rippling up to the beach that he is swimming on top of. And this right there shows the ability of water upon water, of meaning way more many than what's being told. And that no matter how close the good books are to the truth, they've been in the hands of the lie for a very long time. So when you want to stick to the book, you have to just keep reading it and separating it for yourself. And you know, you should probably be in more pain than anyone else. I'm sorry for saying, just because you should be putting yourself and your book through the ringer. And this only makes you stronger. And I can see that most of you have done this. And I mean, I commend you with your strength. There's no denying that. Our world is in such a hard place to have such strength. And I mean, yeah, anyone who's actually developed into a good musician or a really talented artist, I commend your strength. Because when I looked out at the world and I looked at what I would have to do in order to actually succeed as either a musician or an artist, I could not even project my dream, because I always had to make amendments. I couldn't tell myself I'm gonna be a famous and wealthy musician, because my mind immediately went to amendments. Said, I will succeed this as long as I change the entire world first, because I refuse to make music within this system of sickness and Satanism and just it's all for the wrong purpose. I would only be able to do this if it wasn't meaning what it means to actually succeed. And I think people are getting aware of this. The whole social media and how these musicians that actually make it are being treated, and how their money is, and even their money, they agreed, they got duped. They wanted to be a rock star or whatever so much that they didn't care about any fundamentals within themselves. It was worth it, and probably still is worth it to them, unless they've done a lot of searching. It's a scary place. I never wanted to be there. I'm grateful that my life gave me a little like mini version of it for a few years. I got to play some shows and I got to see, just enough attention to know that I didn't want attention from such unbalanced people. It's actually soul crushing because I'm a sponge and they just throw me off balance. Everything throws me off balance. The only way I could keep balance was just by being semi-psychotically loving, yet just focused on gratification and sharing of gratification. You can easily distract people when you just carry lots and lots of substances and willingly give them. It allows you to kind of move through it until your own problems begin to suffocate you and your light begins to diminish, which does happen, but you can get it back. You can grow anything back. That's the thing they're not telling you. The devil's shape is equal to constraint. And let's just draw a little picture of that, what that means. So up here is restraint. Down here is constraint. Would this be straint? I don't know what straint is. So, the lie comes from the constraint. First, a little bit of knowledge that with a little bit of restraint, you can solve your own problem. Every reset, they just chip away a little bit at this knowledge. And they replace what once was self-restraint with outward constraint. Each one of these is like letting a government into your life more. Right? I mean, this is like, now there's a Democratic Republican, but I mean, that's a whole, don't listen to any of those people. If someone says they're Democratic or Republican, they're stuck in the dualist loop. Everything should have a triangle because there's this. This is where it's equal. Everything. Tri-linear, tri-circular, I don't know. So, the constraint is the lie. The more we lose knowledge of our self-restraint, the more, scenarios that make us rely on someone else to save our scared little butts. And so, Christians, I'm sorry, the savior complex is one of these. Not a belief in love for Jesus, but saying that he's gonna save you instead of you are gonna become like him. Not him, but do the same stuff he did, figure out what it was, and follow through. Then they have no constraint upon you, because this is a lie. And the lie is scarcity. Because the constraint they have on you, they have made an illusion of scarcity. That there is a peak oil. Then there's a valley. Then there's another peak. For some reason, certain graphs, they only show you a little bit. And really what peak oil would mean in reality is this is when we actually kill the planet that's producing the oil, because it's one of their bloods, one of their fluids. There's so many fluids in a living thing. And they're there for a purpose. Let me tell you, for a guy that started mining his body for dopamine, I'll never touch a needle again. The needle itself is worse than anything to your greater body. There is no peak without a valley. So if they showed you a bigger map, everything would end up in a circle. It is only by showing you a little bit do you ever end up with a line. But as soon as the geometry student travels out of geometry class and goes to music class, they learn that every circle creates a sphere, because everything creates a sound, and every sound makes a sphere, a pressure wave designed, a little memory of itself pushes out in all directions. So then, on another dimension, this is making another shape, and another shape, and another shape. That's all. Travel, they've made everybody become a specialist. And so they can't see the whole circle. And then ask himself, well, what if you increase dimension? And then what if you increase dimension? And then what if you increase dimension? And what if you increase dimension? And they've also made it so that you require certain proofs for your mind to believe anything or follow a certain train of thought. You need to be able to say, okay, that's why that happens, because you keep interrupting your brain, and then your brain develops a pattern of relying on you, and then it just stops working eventually. And this really it creates dementia and Alzheimer's, along with all the metals and things they got. So